Hello and welcome back to the channel.
If you've ever gone on a trip and ended up paying a lot more than you expected, you're not alone.
Today we're diving into some of the most unexpected costs you might encounter while traveling in a variety of categories.
From extra fees we've known about ahead of time to extra expenses we've learned the hard way over many years of travel, we've got it all covered. Welcome to World Wanderers.
We're Alicia and Will.
Come wander the world with us.
First up, let's talk about accommodation.
So you've already booked your dream hotel, but it's not always the final price tag that hits you when you check out.
Resort fees are probably one of the most common surprises.
These hidden charges for things like amenities, housekeeping, or just using the pool can really add up.
And they're often charged per guest per day and can really add up.
And don't forget about parking fees, especially in busy tourist areas.
You might find that you're paying $50 or more per night just to park.
I try to filter by free parking when booking accommodations, but particularly in downtown areas, sometimes it's unavoidable. So just knowing about it ahead of time makes me feel a little bit better.
And then there are the tourist taxes and fees.
These vary by city and country, but they can range from just a couple of bucks to unexpected 15 to 20% of your bill.
Some cities and countries don't include this in the nightly rate and do it check-in. So be aware and make sure to budget for that.
And if you're ever in a situation where your accommodation isn't what you expected, whether it's dirty, unsafe, or a scam, you might need to book emergency accommodations.
This can be a huge expense and stress factor when things don't go according to plan. And unfortunately, this seems to be happening more and more often with Airbnb type platforms.
Often you can fight for a refund, but in the interim, having cash on hand to carry on with your vacation is going to give you more power and flexibility.
Need to check in early or extend your stay late? That could come up with extra charges as well.
Yeah, hotels love to charge for flexibility.
Sometimes if you have a super late flight, for example, having a room to shower in and a place to keep all your things can be worth getting the extra day of sightseeing hassle-free though.
Also, don't assume breakfast is free at every hotel.
While some places include it, others will charge you extra, and we found that when it's not included, the price is usually pretty steep for the convenience of not having to leave the property.
We often go out to breakfast or find our own restaurant when the hotel breakfast is a surcharge.
Another expense to consider is hotel Wi-Fi.
These days, most Wi-Fi is free, but if you're working remotely, you may need to upgrade to the premium service in order to take like a video call, for example.
Another thing to keep in mind is tipping.
Bellhop tips might be expected, so I normally try to keep some small bills on hand.
And don't forget about security deposits as well.
Yeah, these are normally refundable, but they temporarily tie up your funds, so keep that in mind that it could be several $100s to even $1,000 depending on the resort or property and how many people are in your party and how long you're staying.
Traveling with a pet, get ready for pet fees.
These can be steep, especially at higher end places, but some hotels may offer pet-friendly amenities for an extra charge.
And if you've got an extra guest, expect to pay for that as well.
Especially at all-inclusive resorts. Even adding an additional child at check-in can be a massive expense there.
Yeah, and even if you just need an extra bed or cot, some hotels will charge you for the extra bedding.
Now let's talk about transportation.
Whether you're flying, renting a car, or cruising, the unexpected costs are everywhere.
When flying, baggage fees can be a huge pain.
Especially when you go over the weight limit, which could set you back anywhere from $30 to $100 per bag.
And let's not forget about the seat selection, which is so annoying that some airlines purposely split you up in your party now.
And then there's the cost of food and drinks.
Airport food prices are high, and those little snacks on the plane, they add up too, now that most airlines seem to be charging for them.
Renting a car, watch out for all the hidden fees here as well.
Tolls are a huge one.
With a lot of toll booths transitioning to pay by plate and transponder tolls only, there's often a pretty steep processing fee on top of the toll.
Right. Just last month, we had to pay a $14 processing fee on a 40-cent toll that we couldn't avoid. It was so frustrating.
And we weren't even getting on the toll road. They just had the toll road and non-toll road combined for about 100 feet and put the gantry where you couldn't bypass it.
Right. And where our GPS didn't tell us to avoid it. It was so annoying. And then don't forget about insurance fees as well. Companies will often try to pressure you into buying their expensive insurance at the rental car counter.
Oftentimes, you can use your own policy if you have it from home, or credit cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve offer this as a benefit.
So be prepared with your documentation to avoid having to pay for theirs. For example, you can't just bring your normal ID cards for your insurance. They actually need the policy with the legal jargon all written out. So I try to have that downloaded and ready to go so that there's no chance of them arguing me into paying for theirs.
Also, consider the extra cost for larger vehicles.
If you're lucky enough to get upgraded, it could cost you more in fuel to fill up the larger vehicle.
We've been upgraded to a Mercedes before, which required premium fuel instead of just the regular unleaded.
And beware of scams in the area too.
Cancun, for example, was infamous for targeting tourists with fake speeding tickets, which you have no choice but to just pay.
And beware of local transportation violations.
We learned this the hard way with congestion zone fines in London that we accidentally drove through.
For the full story, see our travel fails video here.
If you're taking a cruise, you'll likely face automatic gratuities, which can sometimes cost as much as the cruise itself. So make sure to do your research when you're booking.
We've also been charged a fuel surcharge before on a cruise, which was in the fine print of our booking, and I'd never seen it happen before. So just beware that, especially if you're on a cheaper cruise line, like this happened to us on the Margaritaville cruise line, which we don't necessarily recommend, incidentally. They ended up charging us an extra $50 per person for a 2-night cruise.
Yeah. And of course, the internet costs, because let's face it, some of us can't survive a week or two without internet.
Guilty.
As far as ground transportation goes, there can be some unexpected expenses there as well.
If you're using ride sharing services, don't forget about surge pricing during busy times.
Nothing feels worse than paying 5 times the normal price when you could have just left an hour earlier.
And be careful of taxi scams as well, especially in tourist heavy areas.
Yeah, make sure to ask for the price before they start driving.
And if there's a meter, I like to follow along with Google Maps on my phone to make sure that they're taking me the most direct route and I'm not suddenly going the opposite direction to just run up the meter.
International travel brings its own set of surprises.
Currency exchange fees can add up when you're converting money. And if you have leftover money, you need to convert back as well.
ATM charges and foreign transaction fees can add up pretty quickly.
We recommend getting a credit card with no foreign transaction fees and using a bank which reimburse the ATM fees.
We do a whole video about money and our recommendations that we'll link if you want to check it out.
You'll also need to consider individual country requirements.
Visa fees to enter a country are common.
And some countries require mandatory vaccinations to enter, which costs money as well.
Or even if these vaccinations are just recommended for your health, some can still be quite pricey.
Also, be aware when traveling through some developing countries that bribes may be necessary to cross borders.
In this situation, hopefully you'd be traveling with a guide, but it's quite common in some places like Africa.
Another consideration is if you're traveling to places with unsafe tap water, that bottled water is going to become a necessity to buy, and that can really add up as well over a long trip.
Another surprise we've learned the hard way.
Roaming charges. Make sure to put your phone on airplane mode or turn off cellular to avoid sky-high charges.
That one's especially important on cruise ships where you may not necessarily think of it.
Right.
If you're relying on your phone abroad, you might want to look into buying a local SIM card or an eSIM to have service for a lower price.
Activities are another area where unexpected costs lurk. Tips for your guides, rental gear for snorkeling or winter sports, and hidden fees for national park entrances can all add to your budget.
Even photography fees at some attractions can be a surprise cost.
Right, like it was to us at a castle in Romania. Like, I'm going to go all the way to a castle and not take my picture in it.
Yeah, that's what they're counting on.
Yeah. There can also be hidden equipment costs to be aware of, like gloves or a wetsuit if you're scuba diving or snorkeling.
And any delays you have can be expensive as well.
Missed flights, weather-related delays, and airport food can turn your day into a costly one.
And if the airline is at fault, you might get a voucher, but you'd still need cash on hand for immediate expenses, or in case the airline opts to reimburse you after you pay up front.
And visas may also be at play here as well.
Yeah, when our flight was delayed and we missed our connection in Istanbul last year, the airline provided a hotel, but we had to pay for visas to leave the airport and get to the hotel.
They eventually refunded us for the visas, but it took them 9 months and about 30 phone calls and emails on my part because it was more about the principle of it at that time.
Even your belongings can bring up unexpected costs.
Lost luggage is a frustrating and costly problem.
Where airlines may reimburse you, you could need to buy replacements for clothing or essentials while you're wherever your destination is.
The same goes for stolen items.
If you're a victim of theft, make sure to get a police report to turn into your insurance. but having extra funds to replace the necessary items can save your entire trip.
You may also need to purchase adapters and chargers for your devices if you're traveling to a country who has different shaped plugs.
And if you're traveling long term, make sure to factor in laundry services.
If you can do your own laundry, it's not too bad, but hotels and cruise ships charge a ton for laundry services in some locations.
You may also have to purchase some things while you're on the road.
We've often been caught in unexpected weather and had to purchase an umbrella or sweatshirt because it's so much colder than we planned for, or had to buy a shawl or a long skirt to comply with local customs to enter a church or mosque.
And then you have health and safety costs that can pop up as well.
Whether you need bug repellent or sunscreen, often more expensive at tourist destinations, these can be costly as well.
Or if you need medical treatment for an accident or you get sick while you're traveling.
Right. I've been to a lovely ER in Chile, for example.
You may also need to take an emergency flight home for someone else's health.
It's sad to think about, but last minute tickets to make it home for a funeral or to help a loved one who's sick could also happen.
So with all these unexpected expenses, this leads us to travel insurance.
We've decided travel insurance is a must to cover unexpected expenses.
Sometimes we'll rely on the travel insurance that we get through our premium credit cards, like Amex Platinum and Chase Sapphire.
And sometimes we buy a policy specifically for an expensive trip that's more comprehensive and covers more.
And on some occasions, we'll buy a year-long policy that covers all of our trips as a catch-all.
These don't cover everything, but would at least pay for our medical in case of an accident or evacuation in case of a disaster, and trip interruption for delays or lost baggage, which is more common.
We've learned that if you travel frequently enough, eventually something is bound to go wrong.
Right? It's not if, it's when. So we think travel insurance is worth it for the peace of mind.
So there you have it.
Travel is amazing, but it's important to budget for the unexpected costs that can come your way.
Our best advice is always overestimate your travel expenses and be prepared for those surprise charges.
That way, you can truly enjoy your adventures without worrying about your wallet.
Thanks so much for watching.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more travel tips and advice.
And if you've experienced any of these unexpected costs or have another that we missed, leave a comment below. Let's help each other out.
Safe travels!